Did you know that more than 10,000 British soldiers were blinded by tear gas in the First World War? Did you know that scientists will prove in 2022 that early humans first arrived in England 44,000 years ago? Did you know that in 43 BC, 10,000 Roman soldiers fought against 100,000 Boudica warriors, as a result of which only 400 Roman soldiers were killed while 80,000 Boudica soldiers were killed? So join me as we examine the history of England carefully. In the Iron Age, all of Britain south of the Firth of Forth was inhabited by a Celtic people known as the Britons, including some Belgic tribes in the southeast. In AD 43, the conquest of Britain was started by the Romans. The Romans maintained control of their province of Britain until the early 5th century. The end of Roman rule in Britain facilitated the settlement of the Anglo-Saxons in Britain, which historians often consider the origin of England and the English people. The Anglo-Saxons, a collection of very Germanic people, became parts of southern Scotland. Viking raids became more frequent after about 800 AD, and the Norsemen settled in large parts of present-day England. The Norman dynasty, founded by William the Conqueror, ruled England for more than half a century before the succession crisis period known as anarchy. After the anarchy, England came under the rule of the Plantagenets, a dynasty that later inherited claims to the Kingdom of France. During the reign of the Stuarts, the English civil war between the parliamentaries and the royalties took place, which led to the execution of King Carlos I and the establishment of a series of republican governments. The Stuarts succeeded to the throne of England in 1660 under Henry. The 80s had conquered Wales, united with Scotland in 1707 to form a new independent nation called Great Britain. After the Industrial Revolution, which began in England, Great Britain ruled a colonial empire, the largest recorded in history. The Bronze Age began around 2500 BC with the appearance of bronze objects like swords and axes. England was largely linked to the Atlantic trade system, which created a cultural continuum across much of Western Europe. It is possible that Celtic languages spread to England. By the end of the Iron Age, there is ample evidence that they were spoken throughout England and the western parts of Britain. The Iron Age usually begins around 800 BC. The Atlantic system had particularly broken up by this time, although England had contact with France across the English Channel, as the Halstead culture spread across the country. Hill forts were known from the late Bronze Age, but a large number of forts were built during 400 until 600 BC, especially in the South. While after about 400 BC, new forts were rarely built and many since they were not regularly inhabited. Contact with the continent was less than in the Bronze Age but still significant. In 55 and 54 BC, Julius Caesar, as part of his campaigns in Gaul, invaded Britain and claimed a number of victories. However, his invasions are a turning point in British history. As the provider of wealth and patronage, Rome steadily became the biggest player in all its dealings. In retrospect, a full-scale invasion and annexation was inevitable. The first recorded Viking landing was in 787 in Derbyshire on the southwest coast. The first major raid in Britain was in 793 at the monastery of Lindisfarne, given by the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. However, by then the Vikings had they were certainly settled in Orkney and Shetland, and records showed that the first Viking raid in Iona took place in 794. The arrival of the Vikings disrupted the political and social geography of Britain and Ireland. In 867, Northumbria fell to the Danes. East Anglia fell in 869. From 865, the attitude of the Vikings toward the British Isles changed. as they began to see it a place for potential colonization rather than simply a place to attack. Britain was a leading Allied power during World War I, 1918 to 1914. They fought against the Central Powers, mainly Germany. England had one of the largest all-volunteer armies in history, known as Kitchener's Army, with over 2 million men. The outbreak of war was a socially unifying event. Enthusiasm in 1914 was widespread and similar throughout Europe. Fearing food shortages and labor shortages, the government passed laws such as the Defense of the Territory Act 1914 to give it new powers. The war saw a move away from the idea of business as usual under Prime Minister H.H. Askews and towards a state of total war in 1917 under Prime Minister David Lloyd George. This was the first seen in Britain. The war also saw the first aerial Germany in response to Germany's invasion of Poland. The Anglo-French alliance did not help Poland much. The telephone war culminated in the German invasion of Denmark and Norway in April 1940. Winston Churchill became Prime Minister and head of a coalition government in May 1940. The defeat of other European countries, Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, and France, along with the British Expeditionary Force, led to the evacuation of Dunkirk. From June 1940, Britain and its empire continued to fight along against Germany. Churchill employed industry, scientists, and engineers to advise and support the government and the military in the prospection of the war.